Hey, hey!
Cheers. My
Cheers.
whole glass of water here.
So good. Good morning, everyone. How are you? Happy Monday. Another beautiful, we had like this crazy day of weather yesterday. It was sun and then blasting rain and hail and wind and then sun again. It was just one of those days. I thought, oh, this is so like apropos for how life feels sometimes.
I wonder how fast people are going to know I'm not a weather person when so last night was the same here. We had on the East Coast, or the East Coast where I am, Mid-Atlantic, we had some really big warnings for high winds and rain. And so I'm like, did it come from you to me? Or
I know. It's so amazing.
Can it not move that fast?
And the full moon was insane. Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't see it last night.
Oh my goodness. That was the end of the day. It was like this crazy full moon.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I hope all of you had a good weekend. I know some of you, it's Tuesday there already. But hope that you've enjoyed a good last few days. We're so excited to be back and really have been enjoying doing these sort of experiential journaling type exercises with everyone each week. And it's such a huge part of our, longer program. And so we're excited to just continue on this path and really appreciate everyone's just time and energy and engagement. It's been so great.
Yeah. And Bonnie and I, both being coaches, we know that it's really powerful to engage in the experience together. And I think, just watching you all for the last few weeks and realizing as you put pen to paper, right, which is a big part of, as our program, as Bonnie mentioned, there's such power to journaling, but even just writing down words and reading them and seeing how they feel in your body as you read them to yourself or out loud, or and part of the process of learning how we engage with ourselves. So we wanted to jump into a little bit of language today, and how we talk to ourselves, because that's a hugely important thing to be aware of as we work with anxiety.
Huge. Oh my goodness, language is so important. Yeah, it's so true.
Absolutely. So welcome.
Yeah. Welcome. Grab your whiteboard and pen, or pad of paper and pen.
I have paper, Bonnie. You're so fancy with your whiteboard.
I know. Well, I'm in school right now, and they sent me this whiteboard to take my exams with. So it's just what's here.
I say that, and I am teasing you because mine's right here.
I have another whiteboard right over there. Like, we've got all the whiteboards.
Yeah.
Oh goodness. Can't tell we're experiential learners, right? Oh goodness.
Yeah, so we're start pulling things out. Often, I don't know if other people experience this, I have like that Mary Poppins purse, where you put your hand in and you would pull out a lamp, and you're like, where did
I put this? Yeah.
How do I have room and space for this thing? And
it's so true. I definitely have that kind of bag.
Yeah. Good to see you, Donna, Marie, and Kirsty, Kristen. So glad you're here.
Good morning, ladies.
Yeah.
All right. So this first exercise, what we're going to have you do is we're going to write 2 sentences down on our piece of paper.
Great.
And we're going to start. Yeah. So the first sentence is: anxiety is an experience I'm moving through. So anxiety is my pen's not working. Anxiety is an experience I'm moving through. Okay. And the second sentence is: I have anxiety. I have anxiety. So anxiety is an experience I'm moving through, and I have anxiety.
Yeah, can I make a suggestion, Bonnie?
Yeah.
So I think we should each, just for a moment, close our eyes and repeat one of them at a time, and kind of see how it feels as we say it to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
So, for example, let's just each sit here, close your eyes, take a breath, and just say to yourself or out loud, up to you, I have anxiety. And say it over and over again at whatever pace or speed works for you. I have anxiety. And just notice how that feels as you say that to your heart. I should get my headphones on.
Yeah.
Okay. Sit with that for a minute, and then I'll be right back.
I can hear the feedback. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. No, it's okay. So taking a moment to just really feel that into your body, you can move ahead to the next one and just, take a moment, take a quiet moment and say to yourself, anxiety is an experience I'm moving through. Anxiety is an experience I'm moving through. And really sit with how that is feeling in your body.
And if your eyes are closed or you're just at least noticing the feeling in your body, just see if you can feel the difference between this one and the last one. However it shows up for you, it might be different for different folks. And anxiety is an experience I'm moving through.
And if you want to take a minute to just write how each of those have you feel in your body when you're ready. We've been talking so much over the last few weeks just about the difference between our identity and our emotion, and between emotion and feeling. And today we're really wanting to, the intention is really to bring all of that together with, again, how we are speaking to ourselves, right? Because the laws of attraction really tell us that what we seek out, we get more of, right? As far as thoughts, we talked about that. As far as, if we or, have an anxious thought, then we've got all these files that we can pull for, oh yeah, anxiety. I've got all kinds of files for that, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing for joy, same thing for depression, sadness, loneliness. And so the language here is something that's really profound. And we'd love to hear from you before we sort of go into this exercise a little bit about just what came up for you. How did those two sentences feel in your body? What are some of the words that you wrote down maybe, or that came to your heart as the experience of these two sentences within your mind, body, spirit?
Yeah. Kristen, oh my goodness, Bonnie. All right, so let's read this out loud. This is awesome. So Kristen writes, I have anxiety. So the statement, I have anxiety, feels like a huge ball in the center of me. Anxiety is an experience I am moving through, feels external. I envision a force field that I am walking right through. Nice. Yeah. That makes so much sense to me.
It does.
Felt a lot calmer and more hopeful when I said anxiety is an experience I'm moving through.
Yes.
Yep. Awesome. We're beginning to experience the power of language.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what we're also doing. So this is how it relates to what we were doing the last couple of weeks. Temporary. Good. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we are labeling anxiety with the second phrase, right? The anxiety is an experience I'm moving through. We're labeling that and what it is,
Right.
an emotion, right?
Yeah.
The first one's labeling it an identity. So you're really feeling the difference in your body, whereas a lot of us, right, we tend to work with that line, like, I have this sits with me. We are telling ourselves we identify with it. So now you're really feeling the difference between those, and one is much more truthful and honest than the other one.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah, Kirsty.
What was Kirsty?
Kirsty's. Yeah, I have anxiety. Feels like a label, almost a daunting task I can't complete. Anxiety is an experience. I am on a healing journey of self-discovery. For me, anxiety is an experience I'm moving through, like, feels so much lighter to me. And just like I get a sense of like, all right, I can handle this. Like, it's just something I'm moving through. Right. Whereas I have anxiety, it really gives me this like sinking feeling. Like, I can feel it in my whole body, like my shoulders start caving, it's like this very like, feels unbearable, right? The weight of it feels unbearable. But exactly what you said, Liz, of this is truth. Anxiety is an experience that we're moving through, right? This is true for any type of, diagnosis or whatever it is that, comes into our life in that way that, albeit they're difficult, they are experiences that we're moving through, right? And that leaves a lot of room for other things to be possible. So love this. So good.
And Kristen, I love this. I love what Kristen wrote, this huge ball, because, I just wrote like heaviness.
Yeah.
But like to envision it like this is this huge ball, and then you see like this like force field of anxiety kind of outside of us, That's a cool visual. Yeah, love that.
True. See, Kathy popped in. I have feels tight and fixed. Anxiety feels fluid, and I can still move forward. Love the force field image. Yes.
Kathy.
So good. Yep.
Yeah. And I also felt, I don't know about you, Bonnie, if you had other words, but when I said anxiety, I have anxiety, it felt very defeating.
Yes.
That it was unworkable, unmovable, unchangeable, which are some words some of you all used. Yeah.
So true. So true. Yes. It's such a beautiful way to it's amazing what just writing 2 sentences and just allowing yourself to experience them for just a couple minutes, right, can do to shift your entire perspective on how we're walking through life, right? Sometimes it's those little things that make such a big impact. Yeah.
And bravo, not everyone can just take a sentence and feel their way through it, but each one of you just did. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. So today, as we talk about language, and Liz, I don't know if you want to start to lead this next one with.
Sure. Yeah. So, as Bonnie and I talked, and you can share if you relate to this or how you relate to this, but we noticed that a lot of our language and self-talk relates to absolutes, right? So that language of I never, I can't, I always, right? And so, if you begin to think about how you speak to yourself, and this is where the journal will come in handy as well, of what lines you say to yourselves that start with these absolutes, right? So we'll give you some examples. Let's say, what did we come up with? Some of them, Bonds.
Like, I'll never get that job. I'll never be a good parent. I will always be an anxious person.
Yep. I will never be enough.
Yeah. I'll always wake up depressed. Anything that, again, has that sort of absolute, like, here it is, right?
Yeah.
So
that's great. Thanks, Buns. And then I remember we went through like a whole list, and we were just like never, always, never, always. Oh, we can relate to so many of these, you know?
Yeah.
So take a moment and maybe like, you can think of which absolutes speak to you the most, but write down, I will never, I can't, I always, and see what just naturally pours out of you, see what you feel like you might say on the regular. So I know.
You might not have any.
And as you write them down, just take a look at them, just take a look at them. See, again, just what we just did before, see how they feel as you both write them. And then as you were to say them again to yourself.
And these could be things also that you've kind of felt in the past and have already worked through, yeah.
And you can feel free to share them with us or just have them to yourself. Either way, both are brilliant. And then as you look at these, take a look at your list. It can just be one line. It doesn't have to be a whole list. I'm sure we can all come up with a whole list. And just take a look at one line, right? Or one line at a time, and ask yourself, where is there room for growth here? Where is there room for growth here?
You can even rewrite your sentence. That's what I'm finding myself doing.
That's what I'm doing right now too, buddy. Oh, great minds. Oh, good. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Yes, sounds so familiar. And so again, looking at those and then asking yourself, just really being curious, where is there room for growth here, right? In this line, in this sentence,
Mm-hmm.
And if those that work with or, appreciate the numbers, if you were to put it in percentages, this line, does it leave, what percentage of room for growth does this line leave me, right?
Kristen, we were talking about absolutes. So sentences that we hold that start with I never, I always.
I can't.
Yeah, so we were just, I can't. Yeah.
And so we invited folks to use those absolutes and just write down what lines would pop up for them, what lines they might say to themselves on a regular basis. So some you'll see in the comments here, Kristen, but some, like I have I will never be enough, right? I will always wake with depression. I've definitely said those to myself.
Mm-hmm. Mine are two that I used to hold really, really close was I will never feel normal again. Mm-hmm. I would kind of, if I'd have a panic attack, then that would start reset my whole thinking of okay, now I have to start all over again. If I had been doing all right, and then I would be all right, well, that day was the day that the last time I felt normal, and hadn't had a panic attack or had an anxiety, and I'd compare every other day to that day, and just like I am always anxious. That's one that I held on to all the time. And yes, I can't tell who said, I don't know how to add growth to this.
That's coming.
Yeah.
There's your answer. There is no growth here. Right. So, well, there is no growth with this kind of language. Right. So, and you're kind of experiencing that in real time. Right. So when we focus completely on the absolute, that leaves no room for growth. But if we shift from the absolute, we'll find that there is room for growth. Right. And it's also a more honest statement. Right. So if you're telling yourself you'll never be enough, we can change that language, right, to allow for more growth, which really moves us into a state of curiosity, of wonder, right? And that's what we're trying to do. So we're going to shift and change some of these narratives and give you examples, and then you can kind of work on your own lines and try to change the language, with the goal really being of, if you walk away from this, time with us together, as you're move throughout your days, right, and you catch yourself saying that same absolute line, I will never, I will always, you can go, this is what we discussed. I'm going to say out loud, or I'm going to write down this new way of framing it, so that when I catch that, I can just choose these words and see how they feel differently in my body, right? So now you're also seeing this, this approach Bonnie and I take in our program, which is like that thought and body-based approach, right? We're using the thought, but it's going to affect the body. And then once you affect the body, it's going to work right back to the thought, right back to the brain and rewiring. So, so we'll work on reframing some of those now.
Yeah. And it's know in your heart that, again, it's not like a switch that can get flipped, right? We can't just, make room for growth in our sentences and feel it right away, right? So it really is that awareness of that shift, as Liz mentioned, and that curiosity at play, that will help you make just small steps in the next best direction, right? And those small steps are what create super large change in our lives, right? So these are, we're walking through the baby steps with you today, and just continue on that curious path, and it really will create the large change. So
I can tell you it from my experience. I've had a lot of difficulty in the first thing in the morning. I wake up really early, and I will. I should say I did much more in the past, but I still do it from time to time. Well, I'll catch myself ruminating. I'm much better at catching myself ruminating, and I'll see the line that I'm saying, and I'll recognize it. I'll change it. I'll force myself to change it, even though I don't, I'm not feeling like I want to, right? I'm like comfortable in that space of depression or anxiety. And then as soon as I start saying this different line to myself, and sometimes I will say it out loud, my body has a whole different reaction. Right? And I can literally transition the way I go into my morning because of this practice, right? So, it is very much small steps. And like Bonnie said, it's never what's an overnight thing? Like, you could do overnight oats, right? I know you can do that.
Overnight oats.
There's no such thing as overnight anything else.
Oh, goodness. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. So taking, a statement like, I will always be an anxious person, for instance, something like that, right? Those absolutes leave no room for you to be otherwise, right? And again, if you're here, we're guessing that you would like to feel more than just anxiety, right? And so a rework of that sentence might sound something like, I experience anxiety. Anxiety is an experience I am moving through, right? But it does not define me as a person, right? It's not my identity. I experience so much more than anxiety. I'm doing an amazing job here every single week, right? Working through really hard stuff, and it's creating more room for me to grow and move through this anxious experience, right? That was a long run-on sentence, but a lot of different just thoughts and ideas. So this anxiety does not define me. It's not my identity. And again, like, you're here, which means that you actively have intention and heart to work with yourself, right? And work with your anxiety to really transform your relationship with it. So give yourself a big hug for that. Truly.
Yeah. And I think, Bonnie and I, we know we can only really work in honest ways. So we're not going to take these statements and give you the opposite, because the opposite doesn't feel true too, right? So let's be really curious and honest about this, right? So an example for me is, if I say I will never be enough, a truth that more lightly sits and that I can accept is that sometimes I feel like what I offer is not enough. But it's interesting, even if I say that line, when I say like, well, sometimes I do feel this way, right? One, I'm saying that it's sometimes, not always.
Yeah.
And two, I'm saying that I feel like, right? So it's a feeling, not an identity, not necessarily a truth that I'm not enough, right? It's a story that I'm telling myself, or sometimes I frame it as like, it's a lie that I'm telling myself, right? And so, but just that shift, that's what turns us into curiosity and lets us go, okay, I'm just feeling that way right now. And here's probably why, and interesting why, and but no one else is told, but this person's, but I don't need to listen, so it just shifts you into a state of being curious and also a state of more honesty and truth.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true.
So,
yeah. Oh yeah. Go ahead, Liz.
No, I was just going to invite them to try it and on their own, to flip a sentence.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, look at yours and try to write a more honest line, right? And again, it's not necessarily going to be, you're not going to go from always to never. I mean, those are both absolutes, but like, I always experience anxiety too. I never experience, that's not true, right? So what line can you say that's honoring the truth? And here's something that we know from a lot of mindful, from the mindfulness perspective and a lot of data that's been gathered in the way that the human brain works, we tend to notice way more often when we are sitting in a negative space than when we are experiencing positivity or joy. Right? So when we're going through anxiety, depression, we are so aware of it and we focus on that. Yeah. When we're experiencing happiness or joy, we don't tend to go, oh, look at this. I'm really happy right now. Or, oh, what a joyful moment. and
I find myself like, oh, I'm happy. When is the other shoe going to drop? That's what happens.
Anticipating. Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm happy now. I know this isn't going to be forever. When's the other shoe going to drop? Right. Whereas we don't do that with anxiety, right? Or depression. Like, oh, I'm feeling anxious right now. When's the other shoe going to come on? I don't know.
When does the joy come back?
Yeah. But yeah.
But that's that, a big part of our work is becoming aware of how our brains work and where they send us. And we know that life is a span of emotion, And so as soon as we can begin to accept like that this is a moment of this kind of emotion, like I'm going to have grief that's going to feel larger and smaller at different times in my life, right? I'm going to have joy that feels larger and smaller, right? But to also work mindfully to notice those moments when we're in joy, and yes, to breathe them in, Bonnie, like accept them, allow them, and knowing it won't always be there, right? Yeah. Joy comes and goes, thoughts come and go, pain comes and goes, grief comes and goes, right? Anxiety comes and goes. So
when we use those absolutes, also we just set ourselves up for never even meeting any of those, right? Because of course something is never and always something, right? So what are we leaving room for in our lives when we're using absolutes, right? And what are we hoping to bring in more of, right? Attract more of, right? So true.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just looking at your lines, seeing what you can write down that feels, honest and doable, right? So when you try a line, you can breathe through it the way we just did, and say, okay, does this feel more honest? Does this feel more truthful? And if the answer is yes, then work on reframing whenever you catch this one line coming into your brain, into your thought, into your consciousness. Work on just saying out loud or to yourself the other line. And I do have we've talked about this before in other lives. I have little Post-it notes around my home that remind me of things. Yeah. And I've gotten, my new mindful action, Bonnie, of this month has been to say in the mirror, and some people are uncomfortable, and I'm uncomfortable saying in the mirror, but it's that I'll look in the mirror and I'll say, you are exactly where you're supposed to be right now.
Oh, I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
So like physically, emotionally, mentally, right, struggle or otherwise, like you're exactly where you're supposed to be right now. And that's something that I've really been trying to work on accepting.
So true.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's some really lovely comments coming through. Yeah. Again, honor that this is a process and can be tricky, which is why we're here working on it together. We know that we hold you in this space. So as you really work through it this week and the coming weeks, we'll be really just interested and curious to hear what's coming up for you. So please share. Please share.
Yeah. We're reading your comments. These are great coming through. Yeah. Good introspection, which is amazing. And I think a skill that anxious people really can tap into is this ability to be aware if invited. Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah. Well, Liz, do you have any other last thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I think just, allowing us to breathe through this and and just realize this is one part of the journey, and sometimes can feel heavy, but it's also beautiful, that we all get to talk through this together.
Yeah. So we wanted to end today by sharing a beautiful poem of Kirsty's that she shared with us. And it just gave me like full body goosebumps. It's one of those poems that you read from the top down and then the bottom back up. And we thought it was such a beautiful, again, we're talking about language. Kirsty writes a lot of poetry, and this poem just was perfect for today.
And it came out of her experience from last week, right, Bonnie? Like as she's Kirsty's walking through the program right now. And so her work and introspection from last week, this poem came out and she shared it with us, and we were like, oh, so good.
Yeah. So Kirsty, thanks for letting us share it with everyone. I know it will just land in your hearts in the way it needs to. So starting from the top and reading bottom, it reads, to be free, she's fought. And by pure determination, she's been frightened, but never gave up. She's been hurt many times, has broken her own heart on her journey. Now from the bottom up. On her journey, has broken her own heart many times. She's been hurt, but never gave up. She's been frightened, and by pure determination, she's fought to be free.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry.
I know. It's so good. Oh yeah, and I love those poems you can read forward and backwards. I don't know how you figured that out, Kirsty, but it's like gorgeous. It's so beautiful.
Skill. Yeah.
I know, it's so true. So everyone always asks for the poems after the fact. So Kirsty, if you wanna pop it into the group sometime this week, I know everyone would love to be on the receiving end of that beautiful, amazing gift of yours.
Seriously.
Yeah, so incredible.
So thanks, Kirsty.
Yes.
Yeah. For our inspiration for the week.
Yes. So good.
Well, wish you all a good week. Right, Bonds?
Yes, and we'll be so excited to be back with you next week. And just such good work, friends. That we know again that this is not easy, right? It's not easy, but again, all of these small steps that we take towards just more growth, just keep taking the next best step. And when you're leading with love and you're leading with your heart, you can't go wrong, right? I truly believe that in every just facet of my being. I just walk with beauty, walk with love. You cannot go wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yay. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.
Sending love sparkles to everybody. And we will be so excited to see you next week.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Yay. Thanks, Liz. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.